Okay. So how long should parents expect their child to sit and work for, and how often should they do movement breaks?
I mean, I think that varies from child to child. If you're really having a struggle, I always recommend to parents to start low and move high. So, just like with anything, have your child sit for 5 minutes if that's all they can tolerate, and then have a 1 minute movement break. Then have them sit for 10 minutes and then have a 1 minute movement break. See what works best and go higher and higher as they become more and more tolerant, especially for our kiddos with ADHD, ADD, and other like hyperactivity. I call them my wiggle worms. It's really important to give them movement breaks because it helps them regulate their system. Sitting isn't what we're made for. We were nomadic when we were back
Mhm.
in the olden days, and people moved around. Our kids helped on farms, so our kids are used to playing and moving, and we're now having them have to sit all day in front of a computer screen to get their work done.
Yeah.
It's very unnatural. So to move is more natural than not moving.
Not moving. Yeah, we had talked from like a very rudimentary standpoint where as humans put together to sit still and fall asleep. And there's a lot more factors to it, but from your basic neurological premise, if you think about it that way, a lot of our kids, the wiggle worms as we call them, are really fighting to keep their neurological systems alert enough to pay attention and learn, even though they look like they're not paying attention. It's their system trying to be there and trying to be present and trying to engage and participate. The studies suggest the average child can sustain attention for 2 to 5 minutes per year of age. So our kids who are sensory movement seekers and the ADHD, ADD kids, they're going to be either on the lower end or lower than that. So just as Dena was suggesting, set the bar low and start there, and then you can always let them feel successful and always increase from that standpoint. Also playing around with the movement breaks. Sometimes movement isn't always the answer. Sometimes just sitting in a quiet space with the lights down low for a few minutes may be more beneficial than getting up and running around. So kind of the types of things you need to play around with and talk to your OTs about, those types of things. We had also talked about changing positions, letting the child change. They don't need to be sitting at a 90-90 desk top to necessarily get the most out of what they're doing, or to be able to perform or to be able to do math. Letting them do things like tape a piece of paper to the wall, or cast whatever it is that they're learning on the big TV so that it's at a vertical surface. Let them get comfortable in a beanbag chair with a clipboard. So, lie down on their stomach, let them change the positions around a little bit, so that it's not just sitting at a desk and doing work. If they're a little work avoidant, make it fun. Let them build a tent under the kitchen table and do the non-preferred work in their special place. But different things just to try to keep their attention sustained and help them get through that. A lot of the times it's our preconceived notion as adults of what it should look like to be sitting and attending and doing work, but not everybody's put together the same way. So it may very well be that your child can pace back and forth while they're thinking about the math equation in their head and then stop and write it down, and they're still paying attention and learning. It just looks different. So sometimes the movement and the lack of what we view as attention is difficult for us to watch, when in reality it's what that child needs. So kind of keeping that in perspective as well is important.
And I always recommend changing when you're trying to help your child learn. So one of my best recommendations and one of my favorite memories as a child was I used to love getting into my mom's shaving cream in the shower and spreading it all over the shower walls and writing in it. And you can learn rhyming doing that. You can learn letter formation doing that. It's a great sensory play activity, and they're still getting clean. And it's easy enough to rinse that off the shower wall when they're all done. It's an easy cleanup activity. And a lot. I have a child that I recommended that to the mom, and the mom's like, he finally got rhyming because I did it in the shower with him standing there doodling in the shaving cream. And he's also a kiddo that I told mom to have him do his work standing at the counter, because when he's standing, he does his work so much better. His handwriting is better, his attention is better, and he can pay attention long enough to get sentences written. And he's in kindergarten, which is really impressive. So sometimes our kids just need to change position a little bit, change the way they do things, just like we do. I mean, how many times, I can't even tell you how many times I've moved around my house throughout the day because I've gotten tired of sitting in the same seat all day. The same thing if you want to have math in the living room and language arts in their bedroom and whatever, social studies in the kitchen, that's fine. It might actually help them to have that little change of scenery.
Yep, absolutely.
Perfect. So, in addition to that, parents are also wondering how to help their kids participate more in Google Classroom activities such as live readings, and how to sit through those without losing attention. So what do you guys think?
Well, I think a lot of what we've just covered would apply to that as well, giving them alternative spaces and making them comfortable during those activities. You kind of have to think as an adult, if you have to sit down and read a book, chances are pretty good you're not going to sit at your desk or your kitchen table and read for pleasure or leisure. You're probably going to go find someplace really comfortable and curl up and make yourself comfortable and get into your book. And so, if your child is being read to or instructed from a teacher, that may be something that would work for them as well.
Yeah. And especially for reading, I always kind of think about what the reading space, when my teachers were reading out loud to me in elementary school, where were we? And my elementary school, we were very lucky. We had these things called wells, and they were kind of step downs where all the kids could sit in the steps. And then at the bottom, the teacher would sit in her rocking chair and she would read us a book. And it was very cozy. It was very small. We kind of felt all close together. A lot of our teachers had little pillows for us to sit on or lean against, or bean bags for us to sit on or lean against. So story time is meant to be kind of like a close, everyone huddled together. Something that I recommended for some of my kids who are used to having an audience with them when they sit and listen to a story is for them to line up their stuffed animals as their audience for our young ones. I have a little cousin, and he likes to line up his stuffed animals and have them do whatever he's doing with him. And so it's like having an audience. You're sitting in the audience. What's appropriate audience behavior? Or is your little lion sitting next to you talking over the teacher? No. So you shouldn't be either. It kind of has this different effect, because when you're in the classroom listening to the teacher read, you're with your peers. You're with kind of an audience. And so sometimes setting up dollies or setting up stuffed animals will help kind of give you the vibe of sitting with your friends and listening to a story, even though your friends are maybe a little bit far away.
Yep. And
the atmosphere.
The teacher may also have available some of the technology that would let them, if it's a book that he or she are reading out loud, and on the screen the kids are seeing the book, they may have technology available to them to highlight the passage as they're reading, which would help keep attention as well. And usually helps a lot of children be able to read along as opposed to just staring at the computer screen. So something I would ask and look into.
Okay.